You know quite a lot of things already. You know how to set up the application, how to enter LTSetup and have inputs and outputs inside there, how to connect the switch to the lamp, how to get different rooms, yes, and other things. But there are some more advanced things. Some of these I would like to show you right now, and most of others they will remain for separate videos and for documentation. But some of them I would like to show you. So let's start from this list. Cloud connection, then how to set up automation, and we will show movement and water leakage. Then we will go to warm floor and Fancoil and light schemes, how to hide elements if you don't need them to be seen by the end user, and what is UI skins and how to set up the plan control. So let's start from the cloud connection. At the moment, I have in our application, I have local connection. So I go to settings and you see here local. I can go to cloud, but if I enter email and password which we attached to our controller in here, I will not be able to show it to you because I have only Wi-Fi connection on my computer. So what I want to do is I want to have the smartphone and I will disconnect it from Wi-Fi, so no Wi-Fi is connected. And now I run the Larnitech software and I connect email, which I just added to the controller, and the password. So after that, what I'm having here is the same user interface which I'm having here. So I have the feedback and I can control directly everything with two-way control. So this is remote connection which I can use even if I'm not home. Okay, so when I go away, I disconnect from Wi-Fi and it is being switched to the cloud connection. So what you need to do for this, once again, you will need to sign up here with the client end user email, then log in, get server secret code, connect your controller to your account, and after that just use it in the application. The next topic is automation setup. We can have some additional automation, not only switch control, of course. To do so, we are going to visit the part of our application. So we go to edit mode and we want to control lamp number, I don't know, maybe lamp number 3. Okay, this one. So to control it with automation, with movement sensor, I will need to understand where my movement sensor is. And in here, I see my movement sensor. So here it is. Now, what I do is I see its address 31930. Or I can change its name. So this is the sensor which I need. So I will call it like I need. Okay, so I see it if I have many sensors. So now I go to the part which I would like to automate with my sensor. It can be a lamp, it can be a dimmer, it can be the scenario, but now it's only the lamp. And I go to this section, auto. So what I have here is I have 6 automations which are available right now. I would have more or less if I would have different amount of sensors in our system. So what I need now is I need this second automation which give me turn on if illumination level or motion level. So I have here this sensor. You see the name I need. This is the name which we use. And I select this sensor, and then I get the motion level which I need. More than 30% means it's not a cat, it's not a pet and something small, it's a person. And then motion interval, so after which time if I see this movement this will happen. So the minimum is 1 second. So I turn it on. And illumination I can also use, but I will not use now, so it keeps simple. I can also create intervals when this works. So it can work only at night, from this time to this time. But I will not do it to keep it simple. Okay, so I have turn on, but I will also need to turn it off sometimes, yes? So turn off is here, so we have some versions of turning off. This one is for doors, and this one is for motion, and this one is for illumination. So I go to number 4, and if 5 seconds passed and motion level is less than 25 with this sensor, yes, and I would see more sensors if these were connected, then it will turn off. I have also customizing here. One last thing is this part, disable automation. This part gives you disable automation time if client controls the system, not the system, but this item manually from the app or from the button or from somewhere. Then the automation will turn off for some time. Some clients, they like it. So they enter, they turn the light on, and for 1 hour, no automation should work. Sometimes it is helpful, but right now, no. So I will turn this off. It will be just 0 seconds. So that's it. That's all automation I can do now. So I save it, turn this off. You see here A means automated. So we have the automation inside this item. So right now, if I move more than 30%, like this, it will turn on. And if I don't move for some time, after 5 seconds, it turns off. Okay? So if I move like hold me, it will turn on immediately. Okay, so this is movement automation. And now let's see a different type of automation. Let's try water leakage. Now we have this water leakage sensor, which is from previous part, which is connected to our switch. But I happen to have here another type of water sensor, which is Larnitech on the floor water leakage sensor. So what do we have to do now? We now are going to make one of our relays water valve, and then we are going to connect this sensor. So what we need to do is we need to go to modules and settings of Metaforsa. We need to change our output from lamp to one-pole valve. This is the type of the valve which will cut the water if the water is leaked. And one pole means one relay is used, not two relay, like sometimes you need. Okay, so we are saving now, and we are going to see that our lamp will change into valve. And valve will have a little bit of different logic and a little bit of different automation available than the lamp. And now I am changing the sensor, and sensor is connected to the input number 13. Here it is. It will be not third party, but Larnitech leak detector. So I save it. Looking at the list of sensors which we have right now. Here I have the second leak detector. And this leak detector will see the actual water. So I have here this wet thing. It will have some water on the table. And I'm going to have this sensor into this water. So it gives me leakage alert, and I will not be able to reset it until I remove it from the water. So I put it on a dry place. Now I reset it and it is okay. Now I want the automation that will close the valve, the water valve. How am I doing this? So this is the valve, no water, water. And I'm going to edit mode. I'm going inside the item. I can change the name, but then I go to automation and I see leak detectors. And I see two of them. And by the second number, I can understand which is which. So this one is the leak detector of Larnitech. So because it's 27, the number is later. But I could change the name. So it would be easier for us to see it if I change its name in here. So Larnitech leak detector. Okay. So the name has changed, and I'm going again to valves properties, and I see now the exact water sensor which I need. So I select it. And then I select this, not this part. I don't need this part actually to connect to the sensor. By selecting the sensor, I already connected it. This part is for the maintenance. So at Sundays at 5 o'clock in the morning, it will have the maintenance open and close, and can open and close at certain time if we need this with intervals. But we will not use this. We will just select the sensor. So now I save it. It will have A with automation. And what I need now is I need to have the water to the sensor, and we'll see what will happen to our valve. So we have the water on the sensor, and then we have the valve off automatically. I try to turn it on as what our end user do, and I can try to reset it, and it can go now and turn on, because there was a little bit of water and it is not now on the water. But if I'll have more water, I will try to have now a little bit more water in here, and I will try to reset it. It will not reset because there is water, and once I remove it from the water, it will reset and you can turn it on. So this is how water leak automation is set up. So what you do is you set up input as water leak detector, you set up output as valve, and then in the setting you will just connect them together. Now let's have another automation which is maybe a little bit more complex, because you will need to set up the temperature. And the most simple one is the warm floor setup. So it can be radiator, it can be convector, it can be different types of heating. So the thing is, it is heating setup. How do we set up a normal heating? Let's go to the application. We have by default 2 radiators in here, which can be also the warm floor, because these are just relays, 16 amps. So you can connect them to water or electrical warm floor. So what do we need to have them here? We will need to have the output part, outputs, set up as heating valve. Okay, so we have 2 heating valves now, which is enough for us. So let's set up one of these. Let me update it so this one is removed. This can be after save sometimes. So what we need to have a warm floor is we need to have the temperature sensor. Usually inside the floor, but it can be air also. And we do have the temperature sensor. We moved it to living room. Now let's move it back to the setup. Okay. And now we have the temperature in here, 25.6. And we will connect this temperature to this heater to be able to set up the set point temperature, the temperature which we need. So for this we will need edit mode, and we will go to the settings of the radiator, and we can change its name to, for example, warm floor. And for sensors, we will need to select our sensor in here, which is the only one. And in automation, we will need to add some type of automation, for example, comfort, and save it. So let's see what happens. After a few seconds, it will show us what the temperature is. So it will take maybe a few seconds to take the temperature from this one. So we have the temperature already, 25.6, and we would like to have 22. That's why it's not on. But if I would like to have more and wait, it turns on, so it heats up the floor until the temperature is what we need. So this is how the floor works, quite easy. And now let's have something even more complicated. let's have Fancoil. How do we set up Fancoil control? The same as normal thermostat would control AC, we would control it from the relay. So in edit mode, I will remove this sensor. So automation is away. And I will go to the settings of my relays of outputs, and I will make some of my relays Fancoil. So I make them Fancoil group 1, Fancoil group 1, Fancoil group 1, and it means that these three outputs will set up 1, 2, 3 speeds of the fan. So Fancoil group 2 would make another Fancoil, but I don't need it. I just need lamp in here. So we will save it and we will see the Fancoil in our app. Oh, sorry. Hardware attribute has not changed because we use living room. Remember, I told you that we need to have edited items in the setup. So we tried to change the lamp, which is now in different room. So let's move it back to the setup room so we can change it. Move to setup. And after this, this is the potential music which we did not connect. After this, that everything is in the setup room, we will be able to save what we want, like Fancoil 1, Fancoil 1, Fancoil 1. They will now turn to the Fancoil. Here it is. The Fancoil looks almost the same as radiator. I will move it to the top. So I can do now almost the same thing as before to edit item. Select the sensor and select the automation. But thing is that by default it will work for heating. It will not work for cooling, but we need cooling. Let's see how it works for heating. So we want 21, we have 25.6, and now we want 26.5, and here we see that speed 1 is available, and now we want more heat, and speed 2 and 3 will be working. So less heat, so less speed, or maybe off. Okay, so same as thermostat on a wall would do. But we need cooling. How do we get it? For setting up the cooling, we need to go to settings and select expert settings. And I usually select engineering mode also when I select expert settings. So after this, we are going to have one small detail available. In edit item, we will have here this thing, advanced, which is available in engineering mode. So in advanced, we can do one simple thing. We can select valve for heating and valve for cooling. We have two valves, so one of them will go for heating, one of them will go for cooling. So after that, we will have our proper 5 relay thermostat, which fan speed 1, fan speed 2, fan speed 3, cooling, heating, 5 relays. So I have additional things to set up, but I will not go here yet. And in the automation, I will select maybe cool by default. So now it's cool. Now it's cooling. You see it's blue. Now we want 23 and the temperature is getting closer to the one which is selected. So we have the speed less, and now that we want 26.5 and it will stop. So the cooling mode works like this. Once you do it, you will make in 1 minute maybe 1 fan coil. So if you need like 15 fan coils, you will use 15 minutes to make 15 fan coils to set it up. But in here it took some time for me to show you, because I needed to show you simple steps to do it. Now light seams, they are the instrument if we want to control many items at the same time. On every project you will surely need to control not only one light circuit, but maybe some of them, and have buttons like movie button and turn everything off button and things like that. So you can have them in the application, and then you can assign it to the switch if you want. Also voice and also remote control and things like that. So how do we use light schemes? Let's open the application, and we have here default relays and some dimmers. Let's say we want all these relays to work as one group. We go to edit mode, and when we press again on the same menu button top right, we see here a new item which was not here before. It's named Create Light Scheme. We need to have a name for it. Let's have a name like 4 lamps or something like that. We can select voice control and select many other things which we will not do. What we need now is we need to go to the state part. This state is something which is not available for a normal widget, but for a scheme widget it is available. So in the state, what we see is we see our rooms items, and if we had many rooms we would be able to switch rooms in here top left. So to add the item to the scheme, we need to long press it. So I long press lamp 1, lamp 2, lamp 3 and lamp 4, and I see their name became green, and this is these are the items in my scheme, and I will be able to set up their states. With what kind of states do I want? So when I run this scheme, it happens. Now I can go to switch part, and I can press the button and bind it. So my scheme will run from the switch. So this is the scheme, and I like it to be on top, so I long press it and I move it on top. And if I want it to be on the top itself without these items, I can use this one and make a next row. straight from here. So all the scenes will be in here. Okay, so will it work? Yes. Will it work from the button? Yes. So I have now this group control. The next thing would be types of our schemes. If I create another light scheme, I will call it, let's have a name later. I can select the different type. I can select the type, for example, scene. What is scene? Scene is the scenario which happens once I press the button, and it happens only one time. So you will not be able to press it again and everything will turn off. So scene is the scheme, but one time. Let's make it. 1, 2, 3, 4. So when I press, this will happen. I will name it scene. And I will put it also on top. So what happens when I press it? You see? So once I press it, this happens, and after that, nothing. So it will not have any additional state. Just press button and this will happen no more. And in here on off, in here just once. Okay? So next thing which we can have is scene plus. Scene plus is almost the same as scheme. Let's see how it works. So I move it. And what happens when I run it? So I press it, this happens, and when I press it again, nothing happens. But the thing is that what is different from the normal scene, it is that it has feedback. Because if I do this, and this, you will see its state changing. Okay, so it shows you when states are as we need it in this scene. It works the same as scheme, the first one, but without turning everything off on the second press. Okay, so three types we have seen now. We have two more types. Next type is named scheme rev, reversible. How does it work? We have two in one. Like first one will be, let me show you. So the first one will be this and this. And then I select scheme rev, and I have this new button, rev, like reverse. And when I press it, I will be able to select the second state of this scene. So one will be like this, another one will be like this. Okay? And scheme ref. How scheme is different from the scene, people ask. Scheme has two states, like on off, or maybe this state, next state. Scene scenario has one state, like what we need. Okay, and then put it to the switch, bind it, and move it on top so the client can easily find it. Okay, so what happens? I press here, those two, press again, two, and it will work the same from the button. When do we need it, people ask. We need it sometimes when we have some interchangeable and allocable things to work, when we need them. Second thing is sometimes we need different colors, for example. So you press a button and you have green, then you press it again, you have red, green, red, something like this. And many other things actually which sometimes you can use. And the last one is named master slave. And master slave is not the scene or scheme. It is just a group action which they name master slave. 1, 2, 3, 4, and now I can also make dimmers in here. In previous scenes I could also make dimmers, but in here I don't set up the state. I don't need it. Why? Because master slave will be able to control it, to control its states. So master slave will be in here. Let's try to have it. So we see it not as scene, but we see it also with this level. Why? Because we added in here dimmers. And if we press double click on master slave, we will also be able to dim and on off. Let me do it this way, so you can see these dimmers. So you see these dimmers, they are dimming all together because this is group action. And if I had RGB in the same group action, I would have the RGB control in here also, so I could select color also for group. Okay, so this is what schemes and scenarios looks like. Then, important question: when we have light schemes and scenarios, we need to hide some kind of elements which we don't need on the screen. How we do it? So we can go, for example, we don't need these lamps. We need just scenarios. We go to edit mode, edit item, and here we are not able to hide anything. Why? Because we are in the normal standard mode. Let's go to the expert mode. Let's go to advanced in settings and turn on expert settings. Once we do it, in any item we will have this advanced button. So I press it and I see this setting, system. If I select system yes, then this item will be hidden from the end user. I have here some additional things also, like confirm action. It will ask if I want it. So I will need to press 2 times, not once. And also I will be able to copy the item to other rooms. And I will be able to select the subtype. And I will be able to password protect our item. So if you press it, you will need to enter the password before it will be executed. And I will be able to have the last default state, last state, or on or off. But now I just use system to hide it from the end user. You see, it's not available now. If I want to see hidden elements, I will need to go to engineering mode. In engineering mode, I will see hidden elements. You see here, this element is hidden. That is why its address is not orange, but what kind of color is this? Maybe white, something like that. Okay, I will also be able to control hidden elements. And if you see here, in sensors, in engineering mode, I see, for example, this current, which is hidden, and this temperature, which is this temperature of the board of Metaforsa. And this temperature also, that's another one. So when I go and turn off engineering mode, I will not see them, even in edit mode. Okay, so hidden things are available in here. In advanced settings of LTSetup, you can also hide rooms. You can hide whole rooms, or you can make a new user which will be able to see just part of the rooms, or will be able to use just part of the items. So it will be available, but inside LTSetup, not in the app. Next topic is UI skins, but this thing is actually for developers. If you want to change user interface a lot, you will be able to do this, but you will need an instruction which is available from our technical support. The most simple way to see our skins is to go to the application and switch to the white one, which you have already seen. So it's named the light. So this is just the skin, but not the different application. So we can use different types of skins and we can edit them if we are ready to go deep inside our application. One of the important things which clients like about smart home systems is that they can use simple user interface on the panels which are on the wall, also in their smartphones and in their tablets. So one of the ways to do this is to give clients ability to control using their floor plan. How do we upload the floor plan to our application and then set it up? The most important thing for this is to have the instruction. So I'm having here our wiki, and in wiki I'm looking for a plan, and we see here plan control, and we see here the instruction. And instruction says install application, download the file, and file is here. And then this file is actually the skin. Pack it back with zip and upload. Actually, we need to pack into the zip our own plan. So then we need this line to be added to the configuration, and then we enable it in skins, and then we are adding devices. So what I want to do now is I download this file. I already downloaded it, but I will replace it. Okay, and I have here this picture which I would like to be my plan. So we will see the default plan, the one which we can use to show people something, and then we will use this picture. So I open the zip file, then I open PNG, and I have here a plan folder. I have here plan, plan 2, and some RGB line. Plan is this is a demonstration plan on a transparent background. This one is vertical. And I will also get here my file, which is named plan trans. Okay, so it is inside now of this archive. So what I do now is I go to the controller, and some time ago I made it back to default, and I'm going to skins part. So this one is not relevant right now. I'm going to skins part and I download this file. So I have here this file, which is a little bit more than 1 megabyte. And now I am going to add this line, which I copied. Where do I need to add it? I need to go to Structure and then press Edit Logic. Then I need to find the room. Area name setup is the room which I need, but you can use it in bedrooms and in living rooms, anywhere. So I enter this line. What it has inside, that it has a type virtual. It means it is nowhere just in the app, and it has the subtype of plan, and subtype can be different based on what we need to do, and then the name of the file, and the name of the file will be default right now, plan PNG. So then I save it, and it is saved successfully, and I'm opening the application. So now you see it is being downloaded. It's almost done. And what we need to do now is we need to turn on this skin. Skins, LT plan, turn on. Now I see this plan. What I can also do is I can select subtype plan P, named it plan P. You can find about this in this line, plan P. And what will happen? So I save it, and after that this plan will be the color of the user interface, so it will be the same color as here. Let's now have our own plan. Our own file is named plan trans, not trans, but trans. I save it. So now the picture changed, but the picture is colored with user interface. We don't need it. So let's get it back to the plan. The subtype is now plan, so the color will be original. So this is our picture with our plan. It looks pretty nice. You will be able to see it on all devices, so on smartphones and on wall panels everywhere. So let's edit it and control something from it. We go to edit mode, and we have here this plus, and here we can select which room do we need, and we can select what kind of item do we need. So lamp, let me add a lamp, and here I edit the size of the lamp. I can edit the place where it is, and I can rotate, change icon, like this one, for example. It will be this bulb. Okay, so now I save it. I go out of edit mode, and then I can press on the screen and it controls our lamp. Okay, it also shows the feedback, and I can have here many items, as many as I want. for example, I want here to have here blinds. If I long press the item, then I can move it and change its size. So let's also add the sensor, like let's have a motion sensor, and let's have temperature sensor, and many other things which we can have here. So what we have now is we control also our blinds. You see it's going down, roll blinds in here, and we can see the movement. Yes, here is the sensor seeing me moving. This is how we work with the floor plan, and I think this is it for the part of advanced application setup. And now let's move to advanced LT setup. First, we are going to look at logs and console, then to structure and what is structure, remotes, cameras, licenses and plugins. Then we are going to look at voice assistants, where do you turn it on and how it works. Then scripts, then climate control and API. So this is our plan for advanced LT setup. Now let's go to dealer panel and open LT setup. LT setup is now opening and will show us the overview section. So the first thing which we need to see is log. Last log messages we see after we enter. And here you can see that just now I updated firmware on 2 devices, and I changed time zone and so on. So all important things will be seen in these last log messages. If you want to see the whole log, you will need to go down here to the system and press logs. So if you have more logs, and this controller was recently reset to factory default, so we don't have these logs in here, you will be able to see here more logs. And you will be able to filter it by modules, by types, by the level of the error, and by messages which you receive, or reset the filter. If you want to have some kind of a deeper log, you will need to go to Server Console down here. Server Console shows you messages which are not appearing usually in the log because they are not that important and they are here quite often. So, for example, if we reboot the system or we connect remotely, let's see if I connect through this application. Yes, we have one more line about this, about voice over IP. Okay, so if I want more information, I can press here New Devices. So the system tries to search for new devices. To see versions, and command sent successfully, that's what I see. And I see here compile time of the firmware. And then I can see time and the time of the server right now. Okay, here it is, current time. And I can update user interface or see the server compilation date and restart it if I want. Okay, so these are main things. If you have some kind of trouble with scripts or you have some kind of errors on devices like red lamps, red LEDs blinking, you will surely be able to see them in this server console. So you should go there if you need it. Next important thing which we need to see is the structure. And structure is really important because it is everything which we see inside the application, and also a lot of automations and many other things and settings depend on the structure. Where can we see the structure? Let's go to LTSetup. And we have here the part which is named structure. When we go there, we see this menu, and we have now only one room. So our structure is only the room which is named setup. What we can do here is we can edit, we can add another room or another floor inside this one. We can cut, paste, remove, move up or move down. And for the whole house, we can edit, create room floor or paste. Okay? We can also expand everything or close everything or refresh. If we have more rooms, like let's have now floor 1. And let's have inside floor 1 bedroom. So we can change the structure like this. And now we want this bedroom to be inside the floor 1. So we take the bedroom and we move it to the floor 1. Now let's have floor 2. And some kind of room on floor 2, like bedroom guest. So we take bedroom guest inside floor 2. So how will our application look like right now? We go to application and we press on our menu of the rooms, and we see now that bedroom is on floor 1, bedroom guest is on floor 2, and the setup is inside the floor setup. We should hide the setup from the end user, so I do not edit it right now. Okay, how do we hide the setup? I think I showed it before, but you can press here on edit, you can press here hidden, and once you save it, end user will not be able to see it unless he has engineering mode enabled in his application. Okay, so we play with everything inside setup and then hide it. Okay, so everything you see here is quite editable, so you can go to lamp 1 and you can press edit. And you can have here the lamp name, the hardware additional settings which you can have. Is it visible or not? The password, does it require password if you want to run it? The subtype is some additional setting which you can have. And the element state after reboot, it can be on, off or last working. And is it inside voice control or not, and the voice control name. If you turn voice control on, you will need the name. And also access part. Access part works if you go to this add user site. So actually the structure also includes the different user settings for our application. So let's have some users added. Let's have one user which will be like installer, and this installer will have the password like 1111. So let's keep it simple right now. And permissions will be edit mode, advanced mode, setup. So all the permissions will be for installer. So now we save it, and we have this user. So what kind of access does this user have to the structure? If we run the application now, we will see that we have here this key, change user. And until we change user, we will not be able to access edit mode and other things. Like, for example, in settings, we do not have advanced anymore, because we have the user which needs to enter the PIN code or password to access there. Okay, so end user can control, but cannot go to edit mode and other things. Okay. But if we press change user and we enter the password 1234, we suddenly are able to do everything. So we can go to edit mode, we can go to settings, and we can see advanced and can see engineering mode and expert settings and everything. Okay. There is more. For example, you will be able to hide different rooms from different users. So we have all users now, and we have installer. And installer can view and execute the room setup. But other users will not be able to do it. Okay, so when I save it, it asks, are we sure? Yes, we are sure. And now what we can see is almost nothing. So we can see only other rooms, but not setup. To see setup, we will need to go to installer user. So I press change user, 1234, save it, and now I am able to see setup and do everything. Okay? So once again, you can have many users inside here. So you can have user, for example, child, and he is going to have like the simple password, like 1234, and permissions will be almost nothing, but he will be able to go to advanced mode, for example, or not. And when we save it, for every room, and for I pressed it second time when it was empty, so it tells me wrong format, but the child and installer are created. So now, for example, I can go to the lamp and I can say that child can view, but others, all users can also view, but turn on can be allowed only by installer or maybe by the main user. Okay, so I will enter like the child right now. So I change user, I enter 1234. Now I am the child, I cannot see anything. But if I go to setup and allow myself to see and execute the setup room, let's change user child again. 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's now try to turn on lamp 1. It will ask for another password because current user cannot do it. But for all other functions, he will be able to do it. But for this one, he will not be able to do it. But if we press 1, 2, 3, 4 as installer and save it, it will turn on. Okay? So we can have many users. It can be users for different rooms. For example, if we have different control panels in different rooms, and in the bedroom we need the control panel which can only control one room and only climate. Then we will have this user and this setting, and this panel will always show us only this user and only this function. Okay, so this part is about adding users and different kinds of permissions that we can have. These permissions will work not only on this PC, of course they will work on smartphones and all panels which control our system. The last thing about structure which I want to show you is the deep editing of this structure. So we can press here edit logic. This is very important button because you usually do not have to go there. But if you have some advanced settings which are not available right here, you will be able to do it inside here edit logic. So I press edit logic and I see here many things. Like I see the text format in XML for everything which we have. Not everything, but many things. Okay, so our house is this one. Area name setup. Then we have area name floor 1 and area name bedroom. So from here I can move different things. For example, I want this lamp 2. I'm copying it, cutting, and going to bedroom and inserting here. So we have lamp 2 in the bedroom, and we will need another name. Like it will not be lamp, but it will be ceiling lamp in the bedroom. So now to save it, I will need to press here save, and it says saved successfully. And now let's see let's see what happens. We do not have lamp 2 already in here, but we go to bedroom and we have their ceiling lamp. So what we do in here affects immediately our application and all the system. Also, we have some advanced features in here. We have automations which are inside the system. For example, let's have some automation for lamp number 3. So inside the application, I'm going to edit mode and lamp number 3. And I say that there will be automation for illumination, and if less than 10% it should be on, and it should be off if higher than 15% after maybe 5 seconds. Okay, so I make now the automation, and disable auto I remove. We have seen this already. So when I save it, I have the letter A in here, Okay, so it should work. Now we can try to have our illumination level less than 10%. Let me try to do this. Okay, so it's now fairly low. And it is on after some time. But if the illumination level is higher, after 5 seconds, it should turn off. Okay. How will we see it inside the structure? In here, we will not be able to see it at all. But if we go to Edit Logic, to the text, we can find our lamp 3. Here it is. And we can see here that we have automation number 1 and all the description of this automation. And automation and another automation for the off and the type of it, off, on, and so on. So even automations and buttons which we attach to different widgets, we can see in here in the structure. The last thing which I want to show you is how to better understand what is happening inside this logic and structure. Let's find some kind of an element. So these types, they are most important. Like we see here the type dimmer lamp. We can go to Wiki and we can type here in the search dimmer lamp. So it will show us where can we find this type, and we see here the description of dimmer lamp type. So in here you can see example of XML and description of every line which can be available in here, and possible device statuses and variants of setting the status and other things. Okay, so these are quite important. For example, you can add additional settings for the dimmer lamp, which is color temp and color white. Okay, you can find all of the types in here in XML menu. So once you go to XML menu, you can understand what can happen to area and what can happen to RGB lamp and valve heating and so on. Okay, so getting to this wiki and XML menu, you will be able to understand all of these settings which are possible in our system. Now let's go to remotes section. Our system can read and send infrared signals. Remotes part is the part which can do this. We can also work different ways with it, but remotes is the most standard way. So what we can do is we can add remote to the user interface. And right now in the application we do not have any remote. You see here on different rooms we do not have the button for remote at all. Now let's have the new remote. We go to remote section in the menu and add a new remote. Name it and select the room for it. Types are not available right now. Probably will be available in the future. So now we have the remote, and in the application we have this button remote. So everywhere on smartphones and on tablets it will be available. And now all the buttons, they are empty, so you cannot do anything with it. How do we read remotes? We can use DMG, DMG Plus or Metaforsa Cloud to read infrared signals. How do we send remotes? We can use 3-in-1, 5-in-1 or 6-in-1 sensors to send remotes. For example, this one 6-in-1 sensor without the cover. Okay, so now let's see how this works. How do I read the signal and send the signal? So I go to edit mode. I see here IR receiver, which is Metaforsa Cloud, and I see here IR transmitter, which is this one. I cannot select different because I have only this device in the system. So now I will press the button which I want to learn, and then I will have this infrared remote and press this button, pointing it to the whole window on the controller. So I press here, I see the timer, and I press on this button a few times, and I have it learned already. Another button, let's have it OK button. So I press OK button. Now it learned. Sometimes if I press some kind of a button and no signal comes, it will blink for some time, for 15 seconds I think, and then it will turn off. So now it will stop, not having any infrared signal. So now you see that it did not learn. It is still gray. Okay, so now when I go out of edit mode, I have these buttons lit, so I can press, and these signals, they are now going out of this controller. Okay, do we see it in the structure? Yes, we see infrared signals in the structure. I can go to edit logic and I can find our remote very easily because it has these long infrared signals inside. So I see here remote, and this one is power button, and this one is OK button. And this is the address of the remote itself. Okay, so I can take the remote fully from here and move to the different room, same as I could do with any other functions. For example, I move it to bedroom, and now I will have the remote in the bedroom here with these functions. Okay, the copy thing is important because you can copy from one controller to others. So if someone learns some kind of a remote and understands that it works, and they work not always, because infrared signals, they can be very, very different with very different frequencies and very different protocols. So mostly they work, but it is not guaranteed that they will work like immediately. So if you learn something and you try and it works good, then you can give it to someone or maybe use in your next projects, not learning again. So do we have some of the learned signals? Yes, we have some kinds of signals for different televisions like Sony, LG, Samsung. For example, this one is for LG. So what I can do is I can copy this and I can insert it in my structure. So inside the room setup, I will be able to have another remote, which will be named LG TV. But important thing that we will need to change these addresses, because this is the address of the infrared output. So our infrared output is 319.11, and here 504.11. So I will need to change it to 319. So what I do is I search for 504 all, and it gives me all 504. and I change it to 319. Okay, so it was quite easy, and all these signals, they will now go through the 319. Okay, so I saved it, and I will have now in the setup room the LG TV fully working remote with signals coming from 319 addressed device. There are much more things which we can do with infrared signals. For example, we can make scenarios for it. We can use them through the scripts and so on. But I will not go there right now. This is enough, I think, at the moment until you try it. Cameras. We can have different kinds of cameras connected to our application. Important thing is that camera feed is not going into the controller. Camera feed is going directly into the application, into the device which has the application installed. So we cannot work with recordings, for example. We work only with video feeds. I have here some example. I have two video feeds which are now working from the internet. And let's add those. So now we do not have camera on any rooms. Let's add it. We go to cameras section, and we also support ONVIF standard and RTSP and HTTP. We will now use HTTP. And to add a new camera, you can press here add. But I will use add camera wizard, which I like more, which can work faster. So I have here local URL for the camera with low quality, high quality. Oh no, sorry. I do not have it copied. Copy. And then low quality, high quality, and remote URL. They will all be the same because now I just need to test. But from your camera, you will be able to use different ones. So now I don't need real login and password because there is nothing for these cameras, but I can enter any of those. So something I need to enter. It will not work if I enter nothing to the login. The name should be the name of the camera, so cam1 for example, and the location is the room where we need this camera. So now I press add, and I go to application, and I already have here the camera icon. So when I press on it, I can see it. But you see that it is not on. I need to press on the screen to have it on. So something is moving here, as you can see. If I want the camera to be on immediately after I enter the page of the camera, I can press edit in here, and I have many settings which I will not go deep inside right now. You can find them in the wiki and understand what this all means. But I will just use this one, autoplay. Then save it. And now every time I go to camera section, it will play immediately. If I want second camera, I will have it copied, I will add it. Maximum I've seen was something like 30-35 cameras added to one application, and it still works fine. So, sorry, when I was speaking I was not thinking, so I press here again, and logging, and the name will be cam2 and the password, and edit. Now we will have a second camera, and let's make it autoplay also. So on all devices connected to the system, I will have these two feeds connected. Okay, so I have now camera 1, camera 2. I can see it different ways, like 1, 2, like this, or as all cameras. If I have many cameras, this one is better. What I can also do with the camera is I can long press on the camera and it will stick to the side of the application. So when I go any part, I can control something and the camera will be seen in here. Okay, so you can have this user interface with different functions and with camera at the same time, which is quite nice. So our next topic is licenses. Licenses are the thing which is quite important in Larnitech ecosystem, but usually you do not think about that. So if you use the system standard basic ways, you don't need to think about licenses. But if you want to use it a little bit differently, for example, we say do not use Metaforsa in bigger projects, use ENG. But you bought Metaforsa and your project became bigger. So you need to use Metaforsa in bigger project. But there is a license restriction for one of Metaforsas, MF14, which allows it to use only 4 additional devices. So the first one is Metaforsa and 4 more. So this is a standard way of using Metaforsa, up to 5 devices. So you will need, for example, 10 devices or maybe 20 devices for Metaforsa. And then you will need to go to the price list and see how much opening this license costs. It costs not a lot, but sometimes you need to use it. How do you understand what kind of licenses are supported by default by what kind of controllers? You go to Wiki, as usual. So once you go to Wiki, here, you can go to additional information and then to Metaforsa DMG comparison. So here we have DMG, Metaforsa 1, which is an old product, and Metaforsa 2, which is current MF14, and Metaforsa 2 Cloud, which is MFC14, which is in our price list also. They have different license restrictions. So, for example, DMG does not have restriction. This is the system restriction up to 999 modules. But Metaforsa uses 1 Metaforsa plus 4 more devices. So even though quite big projects you can do, so for example, some people, they do 4-bedroom apartments with Metaforsa 2 and 4 additional devices. But if you need to go for more, you just buy the license and it becomes the same as DMG. And then also some more restrictions. For example, the quantity of cameras which are supported, IP cameras. So by default you can connect 1 IP camera and use it, but if you buy additional license you can use up to 99. And also custom scenarios, and your own custom scenarios means you write scenarios yourself. So it is not open in the standard Metaforsa, but it is open in cloud, it is open in DMG. Okay, and quantity of additional scenarios. It means that standard scenarios from the database of scenarios can be used. So in Metaforsa you can have 70, but in DMG you can have 150 plus. And some more. So use this page to understand the difference. How do we see inside the controller what licenses are activated and how many devices are supported and so on? So you go to LTSetup to licenses part, system update licenses, or just licenses somewhere in some types of devices. So you can see here support all kinds of scripts, third-party scripts and so on. So that's because I have Metaforsa Cloud in here. This is the example of Metaforsa Cloud. You can see also some restrictions here. For example, you can see that we have KNX plugin and only one device allowed. Okay, it means that if you use this device and you want to use KNX, I'm sorry, you will need to go to our price list and see the price of KNX plugin, KNX license for KNX plugin. So if you don't use standard DMG Plus, which does not require license for KNX, then you will need to buy the separate license. As for Modbus, for example, for Modbus, you will need a license if you want to use Modbus TCP without buying any additional devices. So directly from Metaforsa or DMG, you can control Modbus TCP, but only if you buy Modbus license. Okay, what kind of devices are available for licensing you can find in our price list. So you see there some kinds of licenses available. And if you don't understand the details, you can go anytime to our sales managers and they will explain you is certain thing requiring license or not. Now let's move to the plugins. What are plugins? Plugins are additional small softwares which you can install from LTSetup to use additional functions. For example, if you want to use KNX, you go and install KNX plugin and then you can use KNX. Same goes to Modbus and other things. So how are plugins different from scripts? Because scripts can also be used to integrate with third-party and so on. Scripts is the part which is editable by the installer or system integrator, by the client. And plugin is the part which is developed by the factory. Okay, so the plugins and the database of the plugins is the thing which is available from the factory. Plugins are available from factory developers. Okay, so this is the difference. Scripts are editable by installers. Plugins are not editable. You just can use it if they are available. How do we go and see plugins? We go to LTSetup, and we go to plugins part. And I have some default plugins already installed because I have Metaforsa Cloud. If I had DMG or Metaforsa MF14, standard Metaforsa 2, I would have plugins empty and I would need to go to updates part. In here there would be an updates part and I would install plugins from there. But main plugins are the same and they look the same, they work the same and so on. So API plugin is the HTTP API, which by standard is now not supported, but still needs we need it still for some functions, like for example Google Home support, and we use it also for Iridis support, Iridis software. It will be transferred to the new API, but yet until it is not, we use this API plugin for it. Broadlink are infrared functions of Broadlink system with some controllers. Coolmaster is the integration with air conditioners, mostly VRF, VRV, but also some split systems. So Cool Automation systems and controllers are supported by this plugin. And dispatching is not working in standard projects. It can work in multi-apartment projects. EIB is the KNX plugin, and HDL is the plugin which is also available as it is for use of HDL panels. It supports buttons, temperature sensors, and that's it. I think nothing more. It supports on a good level. Modbus plugin for TCP. Security plugin if you want to have security functions, and weather plugin. So if plugin is not enabled, you see here status disabled, and you can also have the configuration for plugins. Let's see what we can do with the standard plugin for weather. Weather will be our example. So let's go to our application, and in the sensors we see now that we do not have any weather information. So now we go to enable, and you see something is available in here, but some kind of standard location. To have our own location, we should go to configure part, and we should find our city, the city which we need. So let's add Dubai and save it. So it needs to reboot the LTSetup, and after some time we see the difference. The thing is we have wrong time, so now it shows sunrise at 3 o'clock, which is not real because we did not set up the time. In general, we have, I think, Berlin time by default. So once we have Dubai time, some time will pass, and we will see real sunrise, sunset times, and so on. So after the next update, we also have here the information about the humidity and temperature on the street, and the level of sun at the moment. So which is now 0%, which means that sun is not up right now. So to understand the address of the plugin, we can see edit mode here. The address will be 999. The device number 1 will be the sun. Device number 2 will be the humidity, and device number 3 will be the street temperature. You can use this information for example, for protection of ACs or for some additional climate control, for example. So the information about the temperature on the street sometimes important. Voice assistants. As you probably remember, any Larnitech installation can have main voice assistants enabled, and most functions, they can be controlled by voice from current ecosystems, which are Apple, Siri and HomeKit, and Google Assistant, Google Home, and also Alexa from Echo devices or directly. and also Yandex Alisa. How do we enable voice control for different functions, and how do we enable voice assistants? Let's look at this video. And separate videos will be available for different assistants. And if you need more information about, for example, Google Assistant, you should just go to Wiki, you go to additional info, to how to do part, and then you go to Alexa and see how it works and how to set it up, and Google Home, and also see how it works and how to set it up, and also for Siri you can go and see. Okay, so now we are in our system, which is almost default, only has weather plugin enabled. How do we control something? Let's control lamp 1 as a standard, lamp 1 and dimmer 1, and blinds. Okay, you go to edit mode and you need to enable the control of widgets which you will need to use in voice communication. So we need to go to lamp 1, for example. If we want to control lamp 1, we select here voice control, and we select the name which we want for this function. Let it be lamp 1 and save it. Now the same for blinds. You can have different names, but I use this by standard. Okay, so we have now some devices enabled. You can do it also other ways. You can go to structure and to the functions which you need, for example this lamp 1, and you press here edit, and you will see if voice control is enabled or not. If not, you will be able to enable it right from here, and important to set up the name. If the name will be empty, it will not go. Okay, so for example lamp 2, it will not be enabled now, or dimmer 2. So you see here, if I want to enable from here, I press here and I name it the name I want, like for example mirror light. Are you sure? Yes. Okay, so I have now 4 devices enabled for voice control, and I have this part which is named voice assistants, and I have everything off right here. So for any of voice assistant you need to turn it on before it starts working. You probably know that every voice assistant needs to be set up especially on using your own accounts. So let's see the example with HomeKit and with Siri. So I have here the home application. The home application is now controlling something, but I go to the new project, which has no devices at all in there. So in here you can see that I don't have devices. Now I go to Siri and I enable it. Now HomeKit is enabled on our controller. I go to configure part. I see here the QR code, and what I do is I press here add accessory. I have a camera in here and I read this QR code on the screen. I see the bridge and the button Add Apple Home. So it says connecting to the bridge for some time. And now it asks me about bridge location. So bridge location is the room where bridge should be. So it should be some kind of a system room, but I will put it in a standard rooms. And now it asks me about blinds, about lamps, about dimmers, and everything which I have. Should I include it in automations and so on. So I have to just press continue many times, or I select rooms if I want. And now we have some devices available in here. So what we do have is 4 devices right now, and I can go to our application and see how it works. So for example, this one is the dimmer, and you can now see our dimmer on the screen changing its levels. And now it goes to a standard lamp. Like this. And if I turn it on, I would see the feedback and so on. Also for blinds. So I can go and select the level of the blinds, and I can see that they are going right now in the application. Now let's move to the scripts part. What are scripts? Scripts are additional programs which you can use in our system, and you can edit it yourself if you want additional functions, if you want integrations with third-party using different protocols. And scripts are also used if you want to have deeper customization of current functions which are available. So as for scripts, we have the database of existing scripts. You can write your own scripts, or if you don't want to write anything, you can use Blockly, or you can additionally use webhooks together with scripts. So let's start from the database of the script. You can go to LTSetup, to the scripts part, and you can press here Add Script, and you will be able to see the database of the scripts. So quite a lot of different scripts here. For example, this one does, I think, 3 dimmers and makes them RGB. So if you have 3 dimmers and they are one is red, another one is green, another one is blue, you can just make them RGB. So how do we do it? We go here and we see the settings window. So this one is very nice because in Larnitech you don't need to go to the text of the script to change settings, because standard way of using scripts is that someone made this script and you need to understand what is inside if you want to use this script yourself. But here you can use it even if you don't understand scripts at all, like you don't want to go into programming. So you don't need to go and search for lines with the addresses of our dimmers. You just select them in here. For example, first one will be red, second one will be green, and the third one will be blue. And we will have the name for it like RGB from dimmers. And we can save this script to different modules. Sometimes you can save scripts in sensors, for example. And location is the place where the result will be located. So now it will be the setup room. So now I save it. Let's see what happens. So we see that script is available in here. We see in which module the script is stored, 508. And we go to the application and we see that we have here a new button, RGB, even though we do not have RGB in our modules. In our modules we have CO2, MFC, nothing else. So we have RGB here, and this RGB will control dimmer 1, 2 and 3 as if they are colors. So now you see we have dimming part, and now we are changing it. We are changing colors, and you can see in the background how dimmers are changed. Okay, so this script is a very nice example of what scripts can do. But what if we want to edit this script, for example, or we want, as we can see here, write our own script, which does different things, but we want to see what's inside our script in the database. How can we do this? We can go to Edit Scripts, and what we can do is we can go to this one, double click, and we will see how this works. Only this short amount of code is needed to have this script. Also, this part is giving us the window of settings. Okay, you can see what is required here, what type is needed here, and so on. So can we make our own script in here? Yes, we can select all, close it, and then go to create and paste it here. And now we have our own script, which we can use differently. For example, we can add a white, and we can have some kind of system which works with it. I think we can also add a white to this one. Let me see if we can. Advanced. Oh yes, here we have now the white changing, but it works a little bit differently. So now I won't go deep into this, because scripts, they can work very differently and you need to test, of course. What kind of language do we use for scripts? Programming language. It looks very much like C, but if you go to Wiki, you will have the documentation on this one. So you would go to additional info, you would go to downloads, and you will see here script language. When you press on PDF, you see that many functions here with different results and with examples. So you can use it, you can use this file, or you can use pre-configured scripts. Or we have a lot of additional scripts which are not available in here because our partners wrote it and developers did not add it in here. Okay, so you can use many additional scripts which are not in here. Just ask our sales representatives or technical support about it. Okay, but we have more. We have the place which is for people who do not want to use programming but want to have customizations. So we have Blockly for them. What is Blockly? Blockly is is not a programming language, but is a tool which is available from Google. So it is, I think, maybe not invented by Google, maybe bought by Google, but this is one of the Google projects now, which is used for kids and for people without knowledge of any programming languages to program. You can press here Add Blockly Scripts, and it will give you the Blockly editor. Blockly gives you different blocks, as you can think. So different blocks are separated into triggers, and triggers are what runs our actions inside here. And then notifications. So for example, we have here the trigger, the most simple trigger, which runs something when our script is on and something when our script is off. And we have some types of notifications, and the most simple is push notification. So what can I do to have push notification 1 when the script is on and push notification 2 when the script is off? And I can run script, for example, from the button or from the movement sensor or from the light level sensor and so on. So I put here, I have the message on, and I right click, duplicate, and I have the message off. I don't need this one, so I remove it. I don't need this one, so I remove it. You can press here for additional modifications. So you can have application ID, notification mode. I won't go into this yet because there will be a separate video about Blockly. So in here I just want to give you an example of how some things work. Okay, so we added some notification, and we can also add date and time, so when this happens, and we can have device control, so quite a lot of devices can be added in here. So let's try this one. We have only one RGB, and we can have here the color, and if it's on or off, and the brightness. Okay, so the color will be red, brightness will be 100, and it will be on. I will duplicate it, and when the script is off, the brightness will be 50%, and the color will be blue, or kind of blue, and it will still be on. And this will be test example Blockly. Okay, so I I can save it in different modules, and appear in the script will appear in different rooms. So once I save it, I have another button in here, and what I can do now is I run this script, I see the notification, I see color changed, and the script is now on. I can turn it off, and now it is blue, and now the notification is off. Okay, so I can have this notification as a push notification on my smartphone and so on. So what else do we have? We have device control for almost all kinds of devices supported by our system, even with Sonos. And we can have a functions with logics. And we can have different devices controlled with IR transmitter, for example. But this one is get, and get is not supported by this type of trigger. If you want to use get, you will need to use functions. So functions are available in here. Also variables, different types of variables, different types of text, and different types of automations can be controlled. And there can also be loop and other systems which we can control. For example, I can get information from weather. So as I can see here, for example, we can take humidity from weather, and let's see how this works. So I never did something like that, so let's save it. And what happens when we run it? It gives us 60. And what is 60? 60 is something that we have as humidity from weather plugin. Okay, so for example, if you want to have every hour on this timer, so every 60 minutes you want to have a push notification with humidity, what you need to do is you just need to have this blockly and nothing else. Not only humidity, other things also. Also, Modbus functions are available in here, and Google Spreadsheet also available, so you can add different information to Google Spreadsheet. You can connect it in the special part of LTSetup. So, for example, the humidity or atmospheric pressure you can add in first column, and other things you can add in different columns every 15 minutes. Okay, so other things include related actions. For example, master device will be this one and slave device will be this one. And whatever happens to this will happen to many other devices available in the system, including this script. And also following music. And we will have a media point which is not connected now, and we can connect it to a movement sensor. So when someone moves, music starts playing in this room, and when he moves to the next room, it stops playing if no movement in first room, but continues play in the second room. So following music, and also presence imitation. So let's remove everything and let's have a small presence imitation in the same script. So period will be 1 second, and this lamp, this lamp, this lamp, and this lamp will be doing something. So we save it. And now we are out of home, and we want our home to be imitating that we are home, but not at work and not somewhere. So we start this one, and it starts to randomly turn on off these 4 lamps which we added. So once we turn it off, it turns off everything, because in here we have this option, turn off all devices at the beginning and at the ending. Okay, so this is how Blockly works. Any script You can disable, so it stops working. So now this RGB will not do anything because it is disabled, but you will see some changes on the widget, but it will not control dimmers. And if there is a problem with the script, you should go to server console and you can find some errors and problems in there if you have it. Webhook is very interesting function of Larnitech. You can do many things, and it is inside scripts because once you make a webhook, you will need to make a script usually for it, but sometimes you can just use it separately. What are webhooks? Webhooks are functions which are triggered by some kind of web address. Usually it is HTTP address. So, for example, you can trigger some kind of web function from Larnitech, or you can trigger some Larnitech function from the web. For example, you can make a website with a button which runs something in your installation. But how this works? Why do we need to use it? Let's see some examples. Let's go to our LTSetup, and where webhooks live is here, webhooks. And as you can see here, we have events and actions. Events are actually outputs from the Larnitech. Actions are inputs. Okay? Outputs, inputs. How do we use it? You can find out if you press here help. You have here some small script which gives you the webhook. But before we go to webhook, I would like to show it to you using some real functions so you understand it better. Because there are, I think, thousands of uses, possible uses for webhooks, but not a lot of people understand what these are. As an example, I will get FTTT website, FTTT.com. FTTT is the service, web service, which is named if this then that. That's why it is FTTT. They call themselves IFT. IFT is okay. In here you have countless applications, from the most simple ones, like you want to receive a call on your phone which speaks and tells you something, and then to a lot of hardware also, and you see here smart home guide, because a lot of smart home devices are compatible with FTTT. For example, if you want to find vacuum cleaners, you will find here Niato and iRobot and maybe some Home Connect, Rockstar. So you can go to iRobot and you can do something with iRobot using this service. Or you want to have a coffee, so you will go and find coffee machines which are compatible. Or you want a smart lock, and you can go to August, for example, and do something with August. Not a lot of functions are available using webhooks with smart locks because of security, but some smart locks, they give you different triggers. So, for example, if lock is locked, then something happens in our system, and so on. Okay, so we will do something very simple for you to understand better. We will do a new function This is how you make an applet in here, and up to 5 applets you can make for free, and if more you would need to upgrade and pay something. So if this, what can be this? If we receive a webhook from Larnitech, for example, webhook, and webhook can be with JSON or without JSON. We will have it without JSON payload. How do we call this webhook? Let's name it call me. So it will call us. Create trigger. So if we receive call me, then it will do what? It can do many things, so many things. But we will search for call. How can it call? It can call real phone numbers, but in US only, and it can have voice over IP calls. It will require you to install the FTTT application on the phone, on the client's phone. So I have this application installed with my account. Okay, VoIP calls. Call my device and say something like, hi, how are you? Let's play a game or something. Or maybe you have a water leak at your house, please come soon. Or something else. So you can have many things here, like create action. So if this, then that. Now continue, finish. So once I finish, I have my applet. This is an applet, so it should do, it should receive a webhook and send a voice call. So how does, what kind of webhook do we need to receive? So now you will see the real webhook. What is it? So I press here on webhooks, and I see the description of what webhook is, and I go to documentation to see the example. And this is the example of the simple webhook. Main thing here is that it has a unique key. Every webhook and every account on FTTT has a unique key. So you go to maker ftt.com, trigger, then name of your event, and then key. So what we can do is we copy our webhook and we paste it, and we change the event to call me and send it. What happens now? I get the call.
Hi, how are you? Let's play a game. Hi, how are you? Let's play a game.
Yes, so now we have this phrase, and this is it. So this function is the one which we wanted to have. Now let's make this one, but from Larnitech. How can we do this? We copy this webhook, and we make this webhook an instance in our system. So we go now to events, which are outputs, and we can press here help, and we see here examples. So we have a webhook and we can assign a name to it. So I will copy now our my webhook, and I will also copy all this example and I paste it here. I don't need others, I just need one, and I insert my webhook in there. Insert. So this is the one, and I will give it name. The name will be call me from IFTTT. I will make it one word just to look the same as the system offers me. Okay, so once I save it, I see saved successfully. I will be able to use it in blocks. So I go to blocks, not to scripts, by add blocks, and I want to have, let me remember, no, not device control, I think it's other, functions, variables, text, automation, yes, it's in automation. I always forget where webhooks are. So I have this webhook, and I have only one. If I had many, I would be able to select. So I have now this script, and it will become off after 1 second. So every time I press it, but not more often than each second, it will get me this webhook. So I will call it webhook test. And I will now have in my application, I will now have this block, so this script. So now I can have it on a button on a wall. I can have it on a sensor. I can add it to another logic. So I can use it very widely. This is the output of my system now. So once I press it, I have this call. Yes? And it works absolutely the same as before. So what we can do from webhooks is we can find many functions which can be run by web requests, and we can receive these. We can use these requests as outputs from our systems. Sometimes it can be local IP commands. For example, a lot of media systems, they can be controlled by local IP commands, like BlueSound or NAD with BlueOS, or many others. They can be controlled by HTTP commands. Now, second part of webhooks is input. So how do we make an input to the system? So anyone can have, for example, the picture or the button in the internet, not anyone, but the end user, for example, or maybe anyone, and run something in our system. So, for example, this will be a shop, a store, and some client would want to interact using smart mirror, and there will be a big button, and he presses there and something happens. Not in our application, but in the smart home system. How do we make a webhook which is input? We go to webhooks, and we go to actions, which are outputs. We press help, and we see examples. So example includes the name and what will happen, status set, the address of what will happen, and the state. State can be on, off, reverse, or I think can be also different. So I go and copy this one, insert it here, now let me copy all of this so I don't forget something right now and not need to have another video. So this one, I think it's the same. So the name will be like trigger lamp. Trigger lamp. Okay, and it will change the status of the address. Let me see, it will be lamp 1. So what is the address of lamp 1? 5081. 5081, and it will reverse it. So no matter what kind of status does it have, it will change it. Now I save it. But we have only event in here. What is the other part which should have the key and the website for Larnitech? So we have here this trigger lamp. I copy it here. Okay, and we go to wiki, as usually we do if we want some help. So we go, I think, to how to do, and we have here the example with ifTTT. So the one which, almost the one which I show you, so you can read it here. And we have this first part, which is an event, but we need an action. And an action is part 2. Part 2, to add an action. So we can add an action for ifTTT, but I don't want to have it on ifTTT. I just want to have it from the browser. And the thing is that we will need here to find the link. And the link is here, this one. Service Larnitech.com, webhook, API key, serial, action name. We have action name. We will need a serial number, and we'll need an API key. I will show this from my device, which is a demo device, and I'm not afraid that someone hacks it. And if someone does, it will be just fun. So action name, trigger lamp, we just made it. And then serial number of our controller. Where can we find it? You probably remember. Sorry, on overview part in here. Also in application setting in here. This is the same number. Okay, so we have this serial number, and now we need API key. How do we get it? We go to security. We turn on access to the API, and we now we have the API key button, and this is our API key. You, by the way, can change it if you want. So now we have this key, serial number, and the action. Now, what's going to happen? I have my lamp in here, and I have this browser in here. So I insert this, I send it, now my lamp is controlled, and I see here response if I need it. So every time I update it, I have the change of my lamp. Okay, so I can go to my website and make this link. Anyone presses this button, something happens in the system. It can be also this theme or scene, or it can be more. so you can have anything on it. Okay, so this is pretty much it. Using webhooks you can make two-way interaction with third-party systems which are on internet or being controlled by HTTP commands. The next thing of home automation we talk about is climate control. Climate control is quite interesting function of Larnitech because it gives you an ability to combine different functions like heating, cooling, humidification, ventilation together in one user interface, and also it gives you additional automations, like for example, if you have many heating devices, they will start working as one system, or if you have many cooling devices, they will start working as one system. For example, if you have 5 Fancoils which work for cooling, and you want if you want to cool more, you want all of 5 of them to work, and if you want to cool just a little, just one of Fancoils will work, and so on. So in different systems this function is available, but usually you need to program. You need to program a lot, and the guy who programs, the only guy who understands how this all works. But here this is a standard function, so let's see how it works. If you want to have more information about how this works, you go to this familiar part of Wiki Larnitech website, how to do, and then go to climate control. And in here you can have the whole instruction of how this works, but let's move to the application and see what we have in here. So first we have some relays which we are going to use for this one. We are going to use for humidification, this one for dehumidification, and this one is for ventilation. It could be an exhaust fan, or it could be a different kind of fan. And also in this part, in climate part, we have one AC, another AC, so each of them can be controlled, and for some of them you have the sensors which you can see, and different modes and so on. So also we have here a radiator and another one, and they are working separately. Okay, so now this one is heating and this one is not. So how can we make all this work? Let's go to the LTSetup and see the part which is called climate control. So now climate control is empty. You can press add in here and it will add you a climate control. But before that, before adding climate control, I want to show you subtypes of different widgets of Larnitech. So if you go here and if you go to edit mode, and if you go to one of the radiators, for example, you will have here advanced tab. Advanced only shows you if you enable engineering function in advanced setting, as you remember. So you go to advanced, and in here you have this thing, type. The type for radiator is valve or warm flow. Let me select warm flow, so it automatically will go to the warm flow part when I create climate control in this room. In every room you can have your own climate control, but if you have right subtypes, it will work almost immediately, so it will almost not need any additional setups. Okay, so you can see that the icon is changed, and here is the icon is as before. And for these relays, which are now, I think, lighting lamps, I can go to Edit Item, Advanced, and I have here type also. And this one will be humidifier, and I can change name for it, humidifier. It will change the icon and the name, and also a little bit change the logic how this works. And then the second one will be dehumidifier. I don't think a lot about the long name in here because these guys, they will be hidden. And this one, I want this one to be the ventilation fan. So it will be air fan. You have different kinds of automations available in here, and we have more, but only in the application only these are available because these are the most frequently used. So this one will be the fan. So now no logic how this works. For example, I can turn on humidifier and dehumidifier at the same time. But what happens if I turn on the climate control? Now I add climate control. In every room I can add my own climate control. So now I have only one room set up. Let's see how this works. So I save it. And in the application I will see that something already working and different kind of interface and nothing else can be seen. But how does it work? I go here to the setup, and at first it seems like not easy thing to understand, so many things here, but I will explain you. First we have sensors. Sensors for temperature, humidity, warm flow and CO2. By default, if it has a temperature sensor, it adds the one into the climate control. Why? Because in this room, usually there will be one temperature sensor only. But we also have the weather temperature sensor 9993. So we don't need it here, so I just delete it from this one. Only one temperature sensor will remain for the air temperature. And then humidity. We have also one humidity sensor which is normal, which will go from 6-in-1 sensor. And this one is from the weather, we don't need it. But we can use it if we want. And warm flow, I will need temperature sensor in here, so I will be able to select some kind of temperature sensor and press plus in here. So the warm flow temperature sensor will be added. And then CO2. The CO2 sensor is already added by default. So now I have this part, and then not only sensors, but we also have automations. And automations are having different modes for automation, like echo, comfort, boost, like in the car, for example. So I will just delete ones which I do not need now. I just want to show you fast. I will just have one comfort, and echo and boost I will delete. Delete automation. So this is the type of this is the mode of climate control which we will use. So the first, same as for sensors, goes for air temperature. It's just called temperature. So we can set up here the heat set point for heat and set point for cool. So let's have it 22, 23, for example. And then we can see that devices which can control our air temperature is already added. AC, AC number 2, radiator 1, 3 and 4. Radiators which do not go for warm floor, because warm floor device has a subtype. And then we can go to humidity, and we can see that automatically we have humidifier and dehumidifier added. And we also have a warm floor, which is just one. And we also have a CO2, which is air fan. So automatically we have everything already set up. But we have small additional setting which we need to understand if we want to understand how climate control works. It's called range. So the range in here by default is 0-100. 0-100 means that it will work from 0 up to 100. So if you want like 30% heat, every radiator will start working and every air conditioner will start working in heat mode. Okay? But it can be different. The good way to change it is to have, for example, one radiator. And we can change a mode in here. So radiators are just valves, so we can have it working as cooling, for example. So this radiator will work only if the first one will work 0-100. Okay. The second one will work from 20 to 100. So if more than 20, they will both work. If less than 20, only first one will work. And third one will work 50 to 100. So all three will start working if we need heating more than 50%. And then for ACs, we can have them working only in cool mode, in heat mode, or in cool heat mode. So the heat will work only after 90%. So usually if I want to heat, and I have separate heaters, I don't want AC to work as heater. So only 90 to 100. It will work only if we need to heat a lot. And cool will be 0-100. And the second AC will also work 90 to 100 for heating and 90 to 100 for cooling. So only if a lot of cooling or a lot of heating, then it will start working. So this is a typical setting for climate control. Now let's see how this works. In the application, we have now the setting for heating and cooling for air, and the lower one will go for heating, the higher one will go for cooling. And we can edit now for it to be closer, so maybe like this, 23, 24. Okay, so now we can see that the temperature is 26.4. And we want from 21 to 22. This means that both of our ACs are working. If it becomes closer to the temperature which we want, you see here the level of AC, and you see here the state of different ACs. It should not be fast because it's going to have some time, and it's going to need some time. You see, one of them turned off, and this one started to cool down less. So let's look at heating. So let's have a lot of heating, like we want this temperature. Let's see what it does. So heaters we have here, 1, 2, 3. So everything is heating now. And as temperature is getting closer to the one which we need, it turned off the ACs, and usually they will not turn on ever if normal situation. And then if it is very close, it should switch. After some time it should switch to the mode where only some of these radiators heat. Until this happens, let's get like this, and let's get to the one more thing before we go to humidification. You see, only 2 working now. We can ignore some of them. So for example, I don't want during winter, I don't want for ACs to work like at all. So I can press on it and I can ignore always, and then it will stop working in this automation. And when I want it to turn on again, I will go and end ignoring. So part of this automation can be ignored anytime. Now let's move to humidity, and we want now 50 to 80, and the lower we can have higher, for example, and the higher we can have lower. And now you see that humidity, we need a higher humidity than we see on a sensor, so humidifier is working. But if we need low humidity, we will see that dehumidifiers will start working and this one will turn off. Okay, it will also take some time. Yeah, like now. Then we have the ventilation, and ventilation keeps ppm for CO2, and we have now this ppm, and we want, for example, this one. I don't know if it works, but let me try. Let me breathe at CO2 sensor. What's gonna happen? Oh, you see, we have very high level right now, and we have notification about this one, and we have this level in here, and we see that it is turned on. Emergency. Yes, it should not be this high level. So now CO2 is also working, but if we want much higher ppm, I think we are allowed to want only 2000, and it will now slowly go down because CO2 works this way, so it goes slowly down, and once sensor showing us the good parameter, this one will turn off. And also we have here the warm flow. For the warm flow we can have different settings. Which we can set up in here, the same. Okay, so we see here outside temperature also, and outside humidity, and different types of automations which we have. Also, we can go here and set up time intervals. So, for example, for work days, we can have one set point for heat, another set point for cool, another set point for CO2, and so on. So we can have different settings for intervals and for schedules. Okay, so this is it. You can have more functions about climate control, and climate control also works on not only on PC, as you have seen now, also on touch panels and on different kinds of smartphones. So if we connect here, we will see that it also has this user interface, the same one. So this is it about climate control. I hope you understand it. Once you want to use it, you go to Wiki and you read the documentation of how to use it. Now we move to the part 10 of our advanced LTSetup settings. This advanced settings became very long part, but it is still not even close to be full. So we have much more functions, and most important we see here. What is API? API is Application Programming Interface. This is the language which system uses to talk to outside world. For example, you use third-party software and you want to control Larnitech. You will need this API. Or you develop some kind of third-party controller and you want it to work with Larnitech, and you will need this API. So how do we understand how Larnitech API works? Let's see. We go to our LTSetup, and then we go to security. And as you remember from the part with webhooks, you need to turn on the API. Previously, we had an old version of API which was available in plugins, but current version 2.0 is available in here. So now we enabled it. We will also need the API key. And the API key is here, so we will copy it to use further. So here we will have the copy of it in case we need it. Then we have this file, which in short, I created this file to explain in short how API works. So we have a WebSocket connection. What is WebSocket? WebSocket is the alternative to HTTP. HTTP is the protocol which you use to go to a website somewhere. And HTTP is one-way communication. So you send something one way, and then you have the answer, the page, for example, which you download from the internet, and that's it. But WebSocket gives you ability to have a two-way full duplex connection, so you will have immediately the feedback even if many parameters changing, so you will be able to monitor it. So for automation, WebSocket is much better than HTTP. So it can compete only with MQTT, for example. So WebSocket will not work directly from the browser. WebSocket will need the plugin. We use WebSocket testing plugin, but there are much more WebSocket plugins for testing, so you can use it. So you do not enter WebSocket address in the browser, but I think in next versions of Chrome browser and other browsers it will be supported. But currently you will need this plugin. And then URL. So where do we connect? We connect using our IP address. Our IP address is 192.168.1.173. So WS, which stands for WebSocket. And then we use the port, and the standard port is 2041, and we need /API. So we will use this. And then we press open. It's opened now. So it is connected. We need to send some kind of request. What do we want from the system? And first thing which we do is we authorize, because this connection needs to be protected. And to authorize, we will need our key. So I will have this authorization. I already have this key in this text because I made this one specially for this training. Okay, but you will enter your own key here. So request, authorize, key, send, success. So I have the result, which is success now. So what then can I do? I can have the second part. I can get list of devices. For this, I will need to get a request, get devices. So request, get devices, send. Now I have this answer, which is quite long because I get all the devices in the system. So I have here the address, I have here the type, the name, the area where it is, the room where it is, and so on. So if I use the third-party software, I can just go here and I can have the list of everything which is available in our system. So now I clear it. What else? I got the devices. Actually, there is a lot of types of requests and additional parameters for requests, but I will not go deeper because this one is to explain how this works. Okay, now next request is logic get. What is logic? Logic is everything that describes what happens in here, like rooms, types of devices, what can these names of these devices, and so on. So I can get the logic, the structure of this logic. Okay, so here is the logic get, and we have here the same parameters as in the structure of the system. So if we go to this structure, we see this, and if we go to this logic, we see everything here, including automations, including connections to the buttons, and so on. So we can get this from the API. What next can we do? We can get a status of some kind of devices, and for this we will need the address. So additional parameter addr gives you ability to enter the addresses of devices, which state do you really need. So we want addresses of 5084 and 508.11. What are these? 508.11 is this dimmer, and it will be 34% and on. And 5084 is the relay, which is now on. So I send it, and I see the status, and the status comes in hex form, so you can convert this status later in the decimal form if you need this. Okay, and then we go and we have this status set, and we can have here the state, which can be on, off, reverse, and the level if we need it. So let's not use level here, let's use just on for 04 for relay. Not on, but let's use reverse. If you remember, we used this one in Webhooks. So now you can hear that every time I send it, it gives us the reverse. And then what we can do is we can subscribe to the status. For example, we subscribe to the status of the dimmer. And what we are going to have is the subscription. So now we see the status of the dimmer, and if we change it, we will see it changing. Okay, so I don't need to send every time the request to receive the feedback. I just sit here and look at the change of the state. Okay, and what can we also do? We can unsubscribe, so we can stop listening to this channel. Unsubscribed, 1. But I can just send the command subscribe to everything and subscribe to all 63 devices. And I can also subscribe to the logic. So if I want to, for example, receive any change of the logic, or new room, for example, or new setting with automation, I will immediately see the change of this logic. So this is it. We can control almost fully all of our system. I know that this API becomes better and more functions are supported. Also, we have remote API on the way, so you will be able to enter not only this IP address, but you will be able to enter service larnitech.com, the same as we did with Webhooks, but with WebSocket. So you will be able to remotely control Larnitech systems from third-party software. This is it. If you develop API, if you want to use API and develop third-party software or controllers, you just connect to us and to our technical support, and we will give you all needed information. Now let's move to some additional questions which we have before we finish this advanced course. One of the most frequent questions is, can we control many Larnitech installations from one application? Here you can see the screenshot from my phone, where I can change between different installations from one application. For example, client can use it if he has an apartment in the city, and then villa in suburbs, and then office, and all three have home automation with Larnitech, and he uses one application to control all three. So let me show you how this works. You go to settings, and in here you have default, but you can press the plus and you can have the profile name for example, Villa, save it, and then you can select how do you connect. Usually you connect through cloud, and then you enter the email, and then you enter the password, and you connect to your system. So now we are connected to the same installation, but we are connected using the cloud. And in here we have the menu, and we can have more and more and more. So we can have many. I don't know how many. I didn't ask actually. If you want to edit, for example, this villa, and you want to change it or to delete it, you just long press. If it is smartphone, you just long press with your finger, and then you can rename it. And that's it. So it will have a new name. Some people ask if what happens if we change the smartphone or reinstall the software. These settings, they are saved in the cloud. So once you install the application again, it asks you if you want to restore it. So you will be able to restore it. Okay. The next question is, can we use 3D picture as a background in the software? And yes, we can. This is the example from the real project. We have the part in this training where we show how we work with the plan, which is 2D and which is transparent and which is in the design of our application. But you can upload the same way the picture, which could be 3D like this one, and then you put different elements on different rooms and it works absolutely the same. Moreover, what you can do is you can have the control from the video feed of your camera. So you can have the video feed of the camera in here, and it can be, for example, I don't know, the yard of your villa. And then you can place different elements and touching different parts of your yard, you will switch it on or off, or maybe fountain will be on. So you touch the fountain on the camera and the fountain is on, and you see that it is on because you are looking at this camera. This is quite nice function, but we will have a separate video describing how this works. So this all works in our standard application. And I think one of the last questions, maybe the last one in this training, is can we use different types of backgrounds? So not the floor plan as before, but backgrounds in the standard application. So as you can see here, there is a standard icons and widgets, but different background. Yes, you can do this, and there is an instruction how to do this one. Thank you very much. I hope you had all the answers which you needed in this training, but you will have more questions, I'm sure, when you have your practice. So feel free to contact our technical support and me and representatives in your countries. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.